For those of you that joined us about an hour ago, we are back, hopefully fixed. Apologize for the issues. Keep our fingers crossed that we can get through this, and I'll try to keep the presentation perhaps a bit shorter than last time. So, in case something does go wrong, we have more time for Q&A. So, as noted earlier. I'm the Regional Education Advising Coordinator for Southeast Asia. My name is Jonathan. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, and we're going to talk about some of the basics of getting started on your path to studying in the United States. So, just a little bit about what we are, what we do. Education USA, a brand that's owned by the State Department, and our job is to do two things essentially, which is one, to advise students on the whole process of going to the U.S., and the second is to do outreach, both in person and virtually, to create more awareness, encourage students to consider the U.S. And the last note here is that we do have a wide reach. We have we have about 400 advising centers around the world in 170 countries, and I think part of the reason that we have such a wide expanse is there is such kind of a global interest in going to the U.S. The numbers that were just released a day or two ago, about 800,000 international students studying in the U.S. That makes the U.S. the top destination for international students around the world. So we do have quite a few, and as you can note here in the slide, from all over the world. And the good thing about this is that it's a lot of students, but it certainly isn't anywhere near capacity for the United States. There is much more room yet to host international students, and we'll talk about that, why that is, in just a minute. Well, actually, I'll talk about it right now. A little bit about the U.S. higher education. For those of you who don't know, there are many options in America. So there's roughly 4,500 universities to choose from. Compare that to about 300 in the UK and 100 in Australia. So many options, and that's why it's so important to research which schools might be the best fit. And best meet your match in terms of the academic, financial, the personal, and that's what we'll again talk more about that in just a minute. Another note on U.S. higher education, actually three notes, things that perhaps are a bit different than what you have in your home country. But the U.S. System is not subject to the government, to a central government authority or governing body. Institutions are really very free to design their own curriculum and run their own operations the way they would choose. However, there is a check in place, and we call that accreditation. So there's something called regional and national accreditation, which I won't get into now, but what that does is essentially assures a high level of quality, and it does so quite well in the U.S. The second thing to note is the middle point here, no rankings. Is Harvard the best school in America? Some would say yes, but officially, no. There is no official ranking of U.S. institutions, and that's again why it's important that you base your decision not just on that, but again criteria that are important for you. What is the best school for you? And then the last point is different than many systems around the world. There's no national entrance examination for being admitted to the U.S. The admissions requirements vary quite a bit from university to university, and I think that brings us to perhaps the real challenge of going to the U.S., which is what we just mentioned. One, there are about 4,500 options, and as I just said, every school has a different admissions process. So therein lies the challenge, and I think that's why going to the U.S. for many students can seem like incredibly overwhelming. So what Education USA has done is try to address this through something we call the 5 steps to U.S. studies, which you'll see on the slide in front of you. And this is a process we developed, and it's a way that we advise students in our centers, as well as when we do outreach to different audiences. This is how we talk about studying in the U.S. And what I'm going to talk about today is, as mentioned earlier, the first step, which is it's the most important step. If you don't do the step right, the other steps don't fall into place, and it's probably the most time-consuming. It takes a lot of time to do it right, and so that's why we're going to focus on that today. So jumping right in to step one, three components that we'll talk about. The first one is define your priorities. Second one, narrow your choices, and then prepare for your standardized tests. And we're going to talk mostly about this defining your priorities. And what do we mean by that? So when searching for an academic program in the U.S., it's important to first define your priorities and decide what is most important to you. There are many factors to consider, as you can look in the slide up here, and you may want to use something that we've developed as a tool called the Define Your Priorities worksheet to guide you through this process, and you can find that on our website, and I'll give that address towards the end of our presentation today. But let's take a look at some of the, perhaps some of the more commonly used priorities that international students have identified in terms of how they make a decision. So the first one is type of institution. So the U.S. government does not own or operate academic institutions. Instead, you have the option to choose between two types, state or privately operated institutions. Some of the best colleges and universities in the U.S. are state operated, and some are private operated. One of the key differences are public and state-run institutions usually have lower tuition and fees, but financial assistance may be a bit more limited, how much money they'll give you essentially, while private institutions on average have a kind of a pricier price tag, but they typically will offer a bit more financial assistance as well. So both are worth looking into. Second thing are U.S. colleges and universities may also be known kind of for other reasons, such as having kind of like a special subject like science or art, perhaps a religious affiliation, or we have many that are just simply like all male schools or all female campuses. So a whole different variety of types of institutions and ways. This is one way to help narrow down the options for you. The second way is selectivity and size. Excuse me. So the selectivity in institution is essentially this. It's the total percentage of applicants who are accepted. This is, again, another important factor to consider, and selectivity really varies depending on how competitive the applicants are. So, for example, some highly selective institutions accept less than 10%. So that would be like, for example, I mentioned Harvard earlier, would be an example. And there are other less selective institutions that will accept more than 80% of applicants. So how competitive you are will often depend on your standardized test scores, one, and second are your past academic performance. Second thing to consider in addition to selectivity is the size of a college or university campus, which can impact many things. So it's worth considering, such as like the number of students in a classroom, whether it's 10 or whether that's 300. Also, which courses or subjects are offered. What the breadth of those subjects are. The ease of meeting new friends, the overall environment. So, for example, imagine yourself in a small, medium, or large campus. Which one seems more comfortable? Which one seems like a better fit for you? The number of international students enrolled at the institution may also be important to you as well. The number can vary, again, from low to medium or to a high international student population. A couple other things to think about regarding fit factors. One is location. So the U.S. is made up of 4 diverse regions, or I'm going to just name 4 here, but the West Coast, the Midwest, the Southeast, and the Northeast. So you may have your own personal reasons for desiring to study in a specific location. Could be climate, could be family, etc. Also the setting of a school. So schools are typically located in either a rural environment, an urban setting, or a suburban residential area. Also, housing can be a factor. So check to see if the school has housing on campus, if you want to live on campus. If not, living off campus, which sometimes be an advantage, but also for some students, they don't want to commute, or they want to live close to their classes, so they prefer that. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. There are also, like, for housing, there are men-only options, women-only options. Also, they have co-ed housing, which all these options are typically available on most campuses. And lastly, the activities. So there might be like certain sports or activities you want to have on campus, so it's another factor to look into. There's also one more. We can't forget the financial support, as one of the key factors in choosing a university in the U.S. Because if we take an honest look at it, it's studying in the U.S. It's not cheap, right? It's expensive. So that's a reality. But the other reality too is, if you look at the slide, this past year, international students received $8.4 billion in financial support. So that's not $1 million; that's $1 billion. So there's a lot of money available for good, talented students to go study in the U.S. And obviously, every year students receive this. So it's something to keep in mind. And if you're looking at undergraduate study, we did Education USA did a survey not too long ago on undergraduate funding, and found that more than 1,000 four-year colleges and universities did three things. One, awarded at least $10,000 in funding to international students. Second, they had an annual overall cost, everything included, of under $20,000, and or brought their annual cost to less than $20,000 with scholarships and financial aid. So again, there is money available. There are, as mentioned, many schools, over 1,000, that give significant money on average every year to international students. And those are the resources that Education USA has in your center to get specific information on which schools, say, give the most money to students, international students, and which ones might be a good fit for you in terms of pursuing. In terms of graduate financial aid, it's important to note that funding for this type of aid really varies by field. So if you're in the sciences, like the STEM field, and you're looking to do your PhD, if you notice here, over 80% of candidates are awarded funding. If you're looking at your master's in the STEM fields, over half. If you're in the humanities and social sciences, over half of the PhD candidates are awarded funding, and just under half of master's candidates are awarded funding. Other majors, such as like business, health, law, communications, funding can be a bit more challenging from institutions. And if money is given, typically in the form of loans from universities or private sources, is a way to support that. So so once you have defined your priorities, as I just reviewed now, you can begin researching and narrowing your choices to find the right fit. So once you've done this, you may choose, and I would consider narrowing it down to perhaps 6 to 10 college choices that you feel meet your needs. And there's an example of kind of a funnel. So what are the key criteria for you that you've defined on your own to say, this is what's going to make for a good experience for me, and then trying to match that with the many university options that are out there is what we feel like makes for kind of the best experience in the U.S. I did mention earlier that when we talk about the right fit and researching your options and kind of step one of the process, this is part of how we talk to students and parents, whatever the venue is, about going to the U.S. And we have this great website. If you go to the web address at the top here, you can click on a link that says Your 5 Steps to U.S. Study. And so on this website, we have really, really detailed information, much more detailed than I just gave you, for undergraduates, graduates, English language, and short-term programs that walk you through details of each of the 5 steps, It will give you. We have lots of links, PDF downloads, as well as video files that really just give you everything you need for the most part in terms of going through this process. Now, if you are interested to do something different in terms of connecting with the 5 steps, we do have an application on Facebook you can download from our Facebook page. And so it's essentially the same information, but it's in a little bit of a more creative format. So you create an avatar, create a person to be, and you walk through this whole process and find advisors, talk to, have a visa interview, go to the embassy, etc. So it's a kind of a fun game-based way to go through this 5 steps as well. So I encourage you to check that out. Now, what we've been talking about, what we're doing now is really a virtual engagement, right? But I think I'm a strong believer in, as well as that the person-to-person contact is being really important. So, as I mentioned earlier, that's why we have 400 advising centers, because we do feel like that one-on-one interaction, that personal interaction, is really key. So, you can go to our website and you can check out this page that says, find an advisor, and you can type in your location and it'll tell you the closest advising center. So I really encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to go and check that out, make an appointment, stop by the advising center, talk to them about what you're interested in, and they can walk through the process, answer any questions you have, keep you updated in the latest programs, visits by different universities, etc. Also, if you just have like a burning question, that we don't get to today, for example, or you just need to ask somebody in country, there's an Ask an Advisor button on our website, and so it gives you the opportunity to submit it, and it'll forward your question to the advisor that's closest to where you are, and they'll get back to you as soon as possible. The last thing that I'll leave you with is this. It's just the links to our Facebook page, YouTube, with quite a few videos on it from both ones we've made and also ones that universities have made about their campuses, and then our Twitter updates. So these are like the global feeds, but for those of you, I would encourage you to find the feeds in your country, which will be a bit more specific. So you can just Google the Facebook page and put the country you reside in, and then you can start following them. And that's a great way to keep updated, not only on global information, because they'll post that, but also local information that will be posted. That's perhaps most relevant for you in terms of the latest happenings, etc., at the center. And also, lastly, I will, if I can do it, I will leave you with my email address. If I can figure out how to put it on here, I'll figure that out before our time ends today. But I'll throw it on here, and you can feel free to follow up with me and shoot me an email. Whenever you'd like to. So with that, I think we'll open up the questions. I think we'll take about 15 minutes for Q&A, and then wrap things up, and we'll turn over to the next presenter. So let's see here. All right, so one of the questions here is pursuing a master's degree in journalism worth the time and the investment? And so that's a good question, because you're right. It is doing graduate work is a big commitment in any way you cut it, both time and resources. So I think perhaps it really obviously depends on the job market and the country you are. If you feel like it's perhaps extremely difficult to get a job in journalism, I think you certainly have to weigh kind of the costs, as you mentioned. But I do think, along with that, having a degree in journalism from the U.S., especially a reputable program, I think certainly does increase your appeal to those that are hiring. And so, so that's a tough one. But I would say those two factors: what's the market like in your home country, and how does a U.S. degree perhaps enhance that and increase your chances of of getting a position. Yeah, I think another one thing I'd also encourage you to do is, still going through step one in terms of maybe your degree search for journalism, and getting in touch with U.S. institutions, perhaps maybe the top ones you're interested in. Maybe just shoot the admissions counselor a question about that as well, in terms of how long does a degree program take, how flexible is it, what do graduates do typically from that program, and that'll also give you a good idea of like what kind of jobs those graduates are getting out of those particular institutions, and I think that perhaps can also help make an informed decision. All right, so let's look at another one. Hold on. All right, this is a tough question. I don't have a whole lot to add to this one, but it says this: does taking a loan out to finance studies in the U.S. end up being a good choice for international students? So that's a good question. It's a tough one, and I think one of the factors would probably be what kind of loan, and where it's coming from, what the conditions are of it in terms of payback. I think some low interest loans can be certainly a great investment. I mean, I'm an example of taking out a loan for graduate study. It was a very low interest rate, and I'm still paying on it, but it's like maybe 2.5%. So really, it's a really good deal, and I felt like for me it was something that certainly helped me, and I feel like it certainly was a good investment. So I think in taking out a loan, certainly look at the terms of that loan, and I think that generally speaking, I do think going to study in the U.S. ends up being a good investment again, because if you can hack it in terms of going through the admissions process and getting it funded, it's in terms of the quality of the degree you'll end up with, I think it'd be hard to beat or match it anywhere. So again, but I encourage you on this, check specifically out what the terms of the loan are and what kind of repayment process that looks like. All right, let's look here. What else do we have? Okay, question. This is an easy one. Will your PowerPoint be available? I believe the answer is yes. Let me check right now with my administrator for College Week Live and see if they'll send them out or download. All right, so we'll see what she says and gets back to us, and then I will let Marcella, I'll let you know. Okay, yeah, so the answer is yes. It'll be on demand later. So I would just check back to the site, and I believe all the PowerPoints will be downloadable. You can check those out, I believe, at the conclusion of today. All right, so a question here is there any opportunity for educational measurement and statistics in doctorate degree? Yes, definitely. So I did my graduate work at Michigan State, and we had a very popular program there in educational statistics and quantitative stats. I can't remember the exact name of the program, but yeah, definitely. I think especially some of the larger colleges of education, graduate colleges of education, they'll have degrees that certainly address this topic. So the answer is yes, and there are some really good ones there, and I would encourage you to check it out. In some of these programs, like the Michigan State one, there are quite a few international students in that, and very familiar with hosting international students, and so I would encourage you to check those out. And you can follow up with me later if you'd like to, and I can give you some more details. But the answer is yes. There's lots of opportunity, and they're very familiar with international students. Okay, other question here is is taking the core classes at a community college in the U.S. and then transferring to a bigger college a good thing to do? Well, well, I don't want to say it depends because that can get old, but I think that it's certainly a viable pathway. Actually, I took classes at a community college that then would transfer to Michigan State. So it's a path that a lot of international students and domestic students take, and so regardless if you're international or domestic, it's really seen as a nice way to really cut expenses for getting a 4-year degree. So for some students, it really can be the way to go. I think a couple factors. Obviously, one, cost. If cost is a major issue or a major factor, for me it was, going to community college can be a good thing, and getting rid of your core classes and then transferring to a 4-year institution. And this is the second factor to look into, is that you want to be sure that when you're looking at community colleges, you want to look at those that have well-established, we call these kind of articulation agreements or partnerships with 4-year institutions, or at least a well-trodden path of graduates in the community college going to the 4-year institutions. So I think as long as that path is well-established, then I think it can be a great option. And you know that when you take classes at a particular community college, they will in fact transfer as long as you maintain a certain GPA. So yeah, I think it can make sense, certainly for students, the cost-conscious students. Just make sure that the agreement between the community college and the 4-year institution is well laid out and articulated well. And that's something that, again, I would encourage you to just reach out to those admissions counselors at those institutions and confirm that. But yeah, it can be a great pathway for students. Okay. Let's see what else. We have time for a couple more questions here. Let's see. All right, another good question. It says, is it possible for international students to get 100% financial aid at any college in the USA? The answer is yes. It is possible to have to receive financial aid that covers the full expense. So that means your tuition and your living fees, your living expenses. Now, those institutions, I believe this was mentioned earlier, that's not every university. Certainly not. But there is a good list and a large list of universities that will cover the full expense. Know this. I mean, two things to keep this in mind. One is that to be competitive for these scholarships, you really do need to be one of the top students in your country. So it's competitive, but it's available. The second thing I would encourage you to do is this: is that go to, if you can, get in touch with the local advising center. We have a list that we use, where we have polled universities all across the U.S. and we have very specific information about these institutions and how much money they have given to advisees. And we can let you know like which universities have given the most money to Education USA advisees, which ones have given full rides, which ones have given, say, partial scholarships, and which ones might be the best fit for you. So There is cash available that will cover the full amount. It's very competitive, and we have very specific information at our advisor centers that can help you out in terms of answering this question. So I'd encourage you to reach out, and we can have perhaps a longer and a bit more in-depth dialogue about this. Okay. Okay, question, is the TOEFL degree necessary to study in the U.S.? TOEFL degree, I think what we're talking about here is taking the TOEFL test necessary. In most cases, universities want to see it if you're an international student. There are cases where it'll be waived depending on which country that you're coming from. So for example, for students in Brunei, there'll be some universities made the decision because the schooling is completely in English from K through 12 that they will waive the TOEFL. So it's a kind of on an institution by institution decision, but I think in general it's a good idea to take the TOEFL. It'll also or the IELTS, and also it'll having a good score in the TOEFL or the IELTS will also make you more competitive or increase your chances in terms of being competitive for a scholarship if you're looking for financial aid to the U.S. All right, so let's look at one more question. Let's find a good one here. We'll kick it off with this. All right. These are good questions, guys. And you have a lot of them, and I can't get to all of them, and I apologize. But I will try to. And you can always follow up with me after. I'll shoot you my email. How can I go to U.S. for a few months? And let's see. Okay, so last question. It's a good one. Okay, student says, which universities are best for studying engineering and their locations? So a couple things here is one, I think I'm not sure if you're talking about undergraduate or graduate, but certainly what kind of engineering is going to be really important. So if you're looking at, if it's civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, if it's biosystems engineering, environmental engineering, what have you. I think you're going to look at what specific field you want to go into. So that's going to be important, and that really does make a big difference on which institution you're going to choose. Like, so for example, there are certain types of institutions that are going to be, say it's petroleum engineering. University of Tulsa, University of Oklahoma is going to be a really great fit. Well, really, it's going to be one you're going to want to look into because they specialize in that. Look at the industry around that state. It's very oil focused, and so that is University of Houston. So that's going to be their focus for engineering. So I think you're going to want to make that decision first. Is what kind of engineering, and then locations, again, it's obviously going to be dependent on what type that it is. And so one of the there's a number of search engines out there that are going to be really helpful for you. So one, we don't officially recommend any search engines, but one you may want to check out if it's undergraduate program. You can always check out collegeboard.org. And that has a nice way you can filter through the different majors and specific engineering majors, and it'll give you a list of universities that focus on that particular field of engineering, and then take a closer look at those. And then secondly, if it's graduate programs you're looking at, Petersons.com, also a nice way to filter out what type of engineering you're looking at, and then it'll give you certain institutions, and then if there are certain locations in the country you want to live, then you can make a decision from that. So, and also there are hard copies of both the College Board and Petersons and Advising Center, so you can check those out if you prefer to do that as opposed to going online. So with that, everybody, I think we are out of time. And thanks for being patient. I apologize for the technical issues. It delayed this about an hour, but we made it through. I'm trying to look for a way that I can chat you my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email so I don't see it. But if you want to, you can. I'll just let you know what it is. It's J Lembright at. Actually, I'll tell you what. I will write it. This might be better. So, all right. So, hope you guys you can see that. Let's see. All right, so feel free to shoot me an email. It's jlembright@educationusa.info, and we can follow up then with any questions you have. But I hope this was helpful. Encourage you to check out our website. Go to see an advisor at the local advising center, and I hope that we will see you in the U.S. Sometime soon. But thanks for joining us. Hope it's a great day. Hope you check out some of the other sessions today. And again, hope we'll see you soon in the U.S. or hear from you soon. Thanks.